In this episode, we'll talk about the importance of a self-love morning ritual and how to make one to help you with your ADHD. Be sure to listen. Hi, I'm Jen Barnes, and you're about to experience how to ditch the old ways of doing things, embrace your neurodivergence, learn tips and tricks to function optimally, and love yourself, neurodivergence and all. Welcome to the Self-Loved Woman podcast. Hey, it's Jen. I'm excited to share something that's near and dear to my heart today, which is my morning self-love ritual. It's something I've been working on for most of my adult life without even realizing it, but that has helped me and my ADHD so much. It's really helped me function in the world, be productive, but also enjoy life. So I want to start first with what I mean when I say morning self-love ritual. A lot of us think of self-care, and it just feels like this dreaded task that we have to do to care for ourselves. And it's just like, oh gosh, I got to do my self-care. And I really want to shift the narrative on that because, yeah, we're caring for ourselves, but some of these things that we're going to talk about step beyond just plain self-care and actually showing love and compassion for ourselves, showing us that we matter, that our time and our experience in the world matters. And so I'm excited for us to shift the narrative about how we can love ourselves more fully. I got to tell you, with ADHD, I think we need it more than most because for most of our lives, people have often criticized us for not doing things good enough or not trying hard enough or not focusing or whatever it is. And so I think this morning ritual of self-love is just so essential. I want to start with what my morning self-love ritual is because I want to be able to share about different components and how they help for you to think about if that's a way that you could show yourself love and compassion and help yourself be able to navigate the world more smoothly, showing yourself that you are worth your own time and energy. So the first thing I do for my morning self-love ritual is actually turn off screens an hour before bed, which is like at nighttime, right? But if I have my screens on within an hour before bed or I'm watching anything that's upsetting, then I'm unlikely to sleep well. And so I feel unrested or have a hard time getting out of bed when I do get up. What I recommend is trying to go to bed at a reasonable time. I find that if I'm in bed by 10:30, I actually sleep much better. And then getting about 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Now, if you have young kids, I recognize that might not be feasible at this time in your life, but trying to prioritize it as much as possible because we do deserve rest. And also, I don't know about you, but I notice when I haven't slept well, my ADHD symptoms just skyrocket. I have such a hard time paying attention. I'm all over the place. And so it's really important to make sure that we're prioritizing our sleep. So then I get up. I'd love to say that I jump out of bed with energy and immediately launch into that first thing. But one of the ways that I have started to show myself love is to allow myself to get up slowly. And I learned this from my cat, Brielle. So I have a cat. I have two cats, actually. And Brielle is this sweet morning snuggler. She did this at her foster home that she was at before I adopted her when she was a baby, and has done it ever since. She loves to crawl into bed after my alarm has gone off and have some pets and snuggles then. And at first I was like, oh, I gotta get ready. But what I found, if I even just do that for like 5 or 10 minutes, I wake up with such a greater sense of ease. And there's that connection, that love. You know, she's purring, of course, which is lovely. It's really a lovely way to wake up. And we certainly know that connection is a way that helps us feel more grounded, more safe. And so it can really be an important piece of self-love if we choose to do something like that or even have the option. The next thing I do is my gratitude journal. So I happen to have an app that I do my gratitude journal. And I found that over the years, I've been doing it since 2006, that over the years, there are times when it's become almost like this and this and this, and then it doesn't work quite as well. And so what I really require that I do is, even if I'm writing some of the same things, as I write those things I'm grateful for, I take the time to bring into my body and mind what it feels like that that's a part of my life and really cultivate the gratitude. The next thing I do actually comes from Julie Cameron, her morning pages. and I call it brain dump writing. So I just free write between 1 and 3 pages. I find that if I do at least 2, it feels a lot better, but sometimes I can only get myself to have enough time for 1. And so free writing, just whatever's in my brain, it just kind of dumps out all the excess and I have to do this and I have to do this and this and this and what about that? Just writing everything that's coming up. Sometimes it's stuff about dreams. Sometimes it's about conflict or my to-do list, but just getting it out really can help our over-flooded brains. The next thing I do is I go make my digestive tea and my lemon water while I feed the cats. I very intentionally feed my pets a little while after I wake up. It ends up being about 30 minutes. The reason I do that is I don't want them to associate me waking up with them getting food, because otherwise they will learn to wake me up to get their food. And so I intentionally do those things before and then feed my cats. They're not like starving, just so you know. So then I feed my cats, I make my coffee for later, because by the time I'm ready to have my coffee is kind of the part of my morning when I tend to be a little more rushed. No matter how well I do things and try to follow my time, with ADHD, time blindness is real. So sometimes at the coffee making part of my day, I would have to skip making the coffee. And since that little bit of caffeine gives me a bump to be able to focus, since I'm unmedicated ADHD, I have to have that little bit of decaf coffee in the morning. So decaf espresso. So there's some caffeine in it. I make sure that I make that when I'm doing my lemon water, feeding the cats, all that kind of stuff. During that time, I'm also putting away the dry dishes from the night before, because I don't have a dishwasher. And so I wash my dishes by hand, which you would think would be worse for ADHD. I actually find it's working better for me. I mean, knock on wood. But rather than having to unload the dishwasher and then it's like sits there and all that, then I only have like a couple of dishes every morning to quick put away. And it's simple and easy. I have a couple dishes in the evening to wash and then let them dry. Now, granted, I am child-free. And so I have a couple dishes for my cats and then just some for me, and I'm not a huge chef. So you may have a different situation that might not be a fit for you. So I do those kind of things. And then I go to my meditation altar and I start by reading even sometimes just a little blurb, if not a whole page or two, out of some kind of spiritual text. So I use the word spiritual loosely. Basically anything that connects me to something that's bigger than myself. And so for me, that does tend to be yoga scripture or yoga texts, but it really could be anything. I was reading some Richard Rohr at one point, even though I don't identify as Christian. I found that really interesting and helping me to connect to something bigger. So I'd read little blurbs of that. The reason I do that, it reminds me that everything that's going on in the world, everything that's going on in my life, isn't all there is, that there's something bigger, there's something more. And it's helpful to be able to pull myself out of that, first of all, before I meditate, right? But also just in general, because sometimes, especially with ADHD, we can get so stuck in the details and, I gotta do this and I gotta do this and feel so frazzled that it can be helpful to pull back and say, oh, you know what? This isn't all there is, and there's something more. And that way we're not as attached to what goes on in our day-to-day life. So I like to read that little bit. Like I said, sometimes it's just a couple sentences depending on what time I was able to roll out of bed. So the next thing I do is a breathing technique. In yoga, we call it pranayama. And the one I do is called nadi shodhana, or alternate nostril breathing. I really like that one for ADHD because it's a balancing breath. And so it kind of balances the yin and the yang energy, which is really helpful because with my ADHD, I have a ton of yang energy. If you've listened to my podcast at all, you can probably tell that, although I am consciously trying to talk more slowly and, just chill my intensity a little bit. I like doing that nadi shodhana because it creates more of that balance. And then I meditate. I choose to meditate using something called japa meditation, which is basically using a mantra. And then I follow it up with, once I finish the mantra, I just sit silently and as I breathe in, I imagine light going from the crown of my head down through the central channel of my spine. And then as I exhale, I have that light go back up and rain out over me. And so I do that until my meditation timer goes off. After that, I brush my teeth and I do some movement. I personally love exercise. I love to move, but I especially love to dance. Love, love, love to dance. And so I'm so excited I have found Dance Fitness, which involves Zumba and bar. I take from this awesome lady at Dance Fit University, Jessica Hogendank. I'm not going to say her name right. She's awesome. She's super fun. And it makes working out just seem like this joy. So I do that, and then I do some yoga afterwards. And some people are like, oh yeah, I stretch after workouts too. But to me, what makes it yoga is I'm focusing on my breath and trying to be present with what is. So I'm not stretching with my phone in my hand. I'm not stretching to prove something about some stretch, but I'm actually being mindful with my breath about what I'm doing with my body. So I do a little bit of yoga after whatever I've decided for my morning movement that day. Sometimes I do something called a body boss, which is like lifting weights, but with these heavier exercise bands, which I got during COVID. And it's awesome because I stopped going to the gym because it was taking extra time to do that. And so now I'm able to just do this at home. I will say movement is not something everyone can get themselves to do without external accountability. So some people might be like, yeah, I could never work out at home, Jen. And that is okay. And to just give yourself permission and grace around that, because what we're able to motivate ourselves to do depends a lot on who we are and how we function. There's some other things I talk about tendencies in the work I do with clients. That all plays into what's going to be effective for us. So just for me, working out from home right now in my life works out really, really well because I'm not spending time and energy going to and from the gym anymore, which has been just lovely. Then after I do that, I finish getting ready, shower, hair, whatever. I don't do my makeup. One way that I save time and energy is not doing makeup. I just don't wear it. It's always been something for me that I'm just like, and I've never really enjoyed, so I just don't do it. I probably haven't worn makeup daily for like 15 years, and it's been glorious. Plus, you save a lot of money. So, but if you're someone who's like, no, I love my makeup, it's my most favorite part of my day, like, absolutely. Then after that, I get going and do whatever I've got going on. So those are the different pieces I do and why I do them. Let me back up. I didn't share why I do exercise. I think we probably all know that exercise gives us dopamine, other types of boosts, serotonin. I can't remember if it gives us norepinephrine, which is another important neurotransmitter for the brains of people with ADHD. That exercise can really help our brains focus, but it also kind of just gets out the wiggles. So for those of us who have hyperactive type of ADHD, those of us fidgeters and people who have a hard time sitting still, I find that it just gets all that wiggles out. Even people with inattentive ADHD, you still have the hyperactivity of your brain, the daydreaming, all that kind of stuff. And so sometimes movement can really help with that too. So that's an option. Last but not least, I eat breakfast and I make sure that I have something with protein. Not like a lot of protein. I'm plant-based, so I have oatmeal with some blueberries and nuts in it, sometimes banana and nuts, but basically just something that's not too heavy because that'll dampen my motivation. Something though that has some protein so that my blood sugar doesn't drop. I don't know if this is common with ADHD, but I notice if I'm not well fed, if my blood sugar drops, I can't focus worth a hill of beans. So for me, I know that it's really important to get that breakfast. And so as I was sharing about my morning self-love ritual, I hope what you heard is that this is what works for me and that the most important thing you can do about creating your own morning self-love ritual is to find what works for you. So I would encourage you to think about those different pieces like, meditation, the practice of mindfulness meditation can help with focus. I didn't share that before, but every time as we're meditating and we notice that we've been distracted and we're like, oh yeah, I'm trying to focus on this mantra right now, and we bring our attention back, that builds the part of our brain that helps us pay attention. So if you're someone who struggles with focus and you think mindfulness meditation or japa meditation or any kind of meditation might be useful for you, even walking meditation, then that's something that might really help you and be a great place to start. If you notice yourself having a lot of negative thinking, just kind of like, and this sucks and that sucks and that sucks, a gratitude journal is a great way to turn that around. Not that we're doing the toxic positivity thing where we're like, oh, everything's lovely and awesome, but rather that even inside of the suck of things, even inside of hard times, or even just the challenges of day-to-day life, we're able to still recognize the beauty and be grateful for it. So that can really help with those negative thinking patterns if you're stuck in that. The brain dump writing, like I said, can clear your head. And so to really think about what would help you the most, like where might you get the biggest bang for your buck? What are the challenges that you have? And what kind of self-love do you want to give yourself in the morning to help you be able to have an easier life with your ADHD? As you select something, the key is to starting small. So if you're already doing stuff, awesome. And then as you add things, you want to start small, right? If you're like, ooh, I'm doing this and that, but I'm not doing that, then you can always add something. But the key is to start small. A lot of us ADHDers were pretty intense and we're like, I'm going to exercise 2 hours a day, or I'm going to exercise every day if we've never exercised a day in our life, right? Or I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes, which is insane if you've never meditated. I mean, at least I think it is. It would be intense. It would be very hard if you have ADHD and have never meditated, tried to do it for 30 minutes your first time. I think you'd feel overwhelmed by your thoughts. Not that your thoughts are bad, but you might feel overwhelmed by the fact that they're there because you're not used to them being there that way. So the key is to starting small. I like the idea of having a better than nothing goal, words that come from Laura Vanderkam in a book that she wrote, Off the Clock. It's this idea that you come up with so for me, for meditation, 1 minute. 1 minute is my better than nothing goal. So on days like yesterday, I was more rushed. I had a harder time getting out of bed. I still did all my stuff, but I only did 1 minute of meditation because that's what I had time for, so I wouldn't be late to work. So that better than nothing goal is a goal that you can do no matter how you're feeling, no matter what's going on, that you can absolutely do it. In her book, Laura Vanderkam talks about, she was trying to build up running. She wanted to run every single day. And her better than nothing goal was running a mile. And if you've never run, you're like, a mile? But she was a runner. So running a mile takes like 10, 12 minutes at most. And so you can pump out a mile if you're a runner, no big deal. So that was her better than nothing goal, that no matter how she was feeling, no matter what was going on, she could always find 10 to 15 minutes to go for a quick 1 mile run. And then sometimes would do more than that. And so that's one way we can build a habit. With our ADHD, 2 things that are essential is that whatever we do, we make it easy. So we reduce any and all friction around it so that there aren't barriers or things in the way of us doing it. And we have to make it obvious that this is what we're going to do. So for me, my morning pages notebook is right there where I go to use it in the morning. I have my workout shoes in my living room, so I remember them. And, it's just me here, so I don't really care that my workout shoes are in the living room. But if you do, you might put your workout clothes out the night before or whatever. But we want to make it obvious for our ADHD brains because otherwise we're like, out of sight, out of mind, and we kind of forget. So that could be a note on your mirror. It could be putting stuff out, but whatever it is, making it obvious so you remember to do it and then making it easy. So those are some ideas. Oh, my cat Eva is going to join us here for a moment. So those are some ideas to get you started. And I hope what you get out of this is that the single most important thing when building your self-love morning ritual is that you figure out what will help you the most, the way that you are in the world, with what your values and priorities are, and what you would like to do with the time that you have, and go from there. So just because I do all these certain things doesn't mean those are going to be a fit for you. And I will tell you that I've built up this morning routine since I was 16 years old. So I'm 49. So for 33 years, right? Little by little. First, it was just the exercise, and I would go for runs in the morning. Then it became adding a gratitude journal. Meditation came after that. Yoga came in my 30s. And so it doesn't have to be all at once, but just slowly starting to add little bits of self-love, which will help you not only feel better and function better, but it might also shift some of those patterns of self-loathing and shame that you learned from your youth towards embracing yourself for the awesome neurospicy person that you are.